Welcome back to the 10,000 Heroes Show. I'm your host, Ankur Shah Delight. This is Season 6, and get ready, everybody, because Season 6 is where we recognize not only the inevitability of conflict, but we see its transcendent potential. That's right. The only way out is through. So today, I want to share my plan with you for the next season of this show, Season 6. This season, I'm going to focus my solocasts on my own definitions of what a hero is, using the last 2 years of this podcast as my body of research. So I've come up with 10 different definitions of heroism so far in my brainstorming over the last month, and I'm going to do an episode about each one of them over the next few months, a solocast. So today, I'm just going to describe briefly each of those 10 ideas. But before I do, I just want to plant an idea in your head. And that idea is that conflict is a spiritual path. Conflict is the process that brings us the experiences we need for our own growing, our own knowing, and our own transcendence. So let's take that seriously for a moment. If that were actually true, if conflict were a spiritual path, how would it change how you and I approach our lives? Your asshole boss, your lazy kids, the latest school shooting or vaccine mandate or Supreme Court decision, how would you respond differently? This question has been really alive for me in the last few weeks, thanks to a mediation course I took with Ken Cloak last month, who, if you remember, I think was episode 7 of this podcast. If you haven't heard that, it's just absolutely amazing. Our society would take a giant leap forward if we all listened to what Ken Cloak had to say. And so I would really encourage you the next time he offers it, which I think will be in the fall, every single thoughtful human should take it. But anyhow, it's very clear in mediation that conflict is our portal to growth and understanding. And bizarrely, that's also been my conclusion from my brief 6-week foray into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that the conflict is this tool by which we develop presence and the ability to understand ourselves and the other person better. So it's also really showing up in my adventures with cold dips, which so far have been incredibly short and painful and conflictual for me to actually do it every time. So that's a theme to look out for, conflict, in these 10 definitions of what is a hero. So, number 1, a hero is in the flow. So here by flow, I mean being in the moment, being present, a sense of timelessness. That book, Flow, was pretty interesting in terms of what it brought to the table, so I'll probably reference that in the actual episode. And maybe even there's an acceptance of uncertainty that's part of this. I talked with a guest about flux and how to handle uncertainty, and I'll use her interview. That'll be useful. And I'm also going to try to interview Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching. I think that's about flow. He's dead, but I'm going to do my best to find a way because, he's the expert. And I'm especially interested in the question of whether it matters what flow I'm in. So if heroism is being in the flow, if I'm in the flow of dropping bombs or scamming old ladies out of their credit cards, is that still heroic? So let's test the limits of our intuitions around the flow. That's 1. 2, a hero does tonic work. So tonic work is a concept Matt and I came up with last month based on the Chinese herbalism tradition and their notion of tonic herbs, which are herbs you can take regularly for long periods of time with only positive benefit. And my claim is that tonic work would benefit everybody involved if it were truly tonic. The practitioner, the colleagues, the community, the clients. So I'll get into defining more about what tonic work is, how we can apply it in our lives, and whether or not it actually is heroic. Number 3, a hero loves and accepts themselves. So this one is pretty obvious to me. The basic idea is that everything we're trying to do here, whether it's relationships or work or meditation or making money, they're all just veiled attempts to accept ourselves for who we are. And if we were actually able to accept and love ourselves for who we are, there'd be so much less of this drama and this striving. But, thank goodness for the drama and the striving, because we never would have had Twitter wars or LSD or the atomic bomb or Beethoven's 7th or Roundup or Blue Arts or foam surfboards if the people involved were so self-accepting that they didn't feel the need to actually do something. So, there's tension. And there's a lot of great heroic benefit to be had here, as hopefully it's clear to you. It's really clear to me, and if not, I can go deeper into it in that episode. 4, a hero lives in Ikigai. So I can't actually tell whether Ikigai is really a traditional Japanese concept or some newfangled self-improvement construct just attributed to the Japanese on the internet. But either way, I really like it. And it's come to mean from blog posts, if you trust blog posts, the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, what the world needs, some really great graphics, it's beautiful symmetry, colors, all that. But the basic idea is that it's similar to Tonic work, that if you find and inhabit this notion of Ikigai that includes what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what the world needs, it would really be beneficial for everybody. So you'd be contributing to yourself and everybody else. That's 4. Number 5, a hero slows down time. So this is something I've seen over and over in my explorations of the past couple of years, from domains as diverse as martial arts, sports, mushroom hunting, meditation, nonviolent communication, chess, and the end of the Matrix movie when Keanu Reeves finally gets it and can dodge bullets. It's all basically the same thing, and the key mechanism, as far as I know, is increasing the density and acuity of observation to the point whether your stream of processing input is so fast that the actual tempo of reality appears slow in comparison, which then gives you the appearance of having more time to make a skillful action or decision. Of course, this one's got bonus points for being super heroic as well as just plain heroic. Number 6, a hero masters emotion. And this comes up almost every day with almost every person I talk to. As a culture, we are leaving behind the notion that emotions are bad or meant to be silenced or just dealt with or even managed, and headed towards embracing the idea that every emotion is informationally dense. Emotions are giving us knowledge about what we really want and need to do. So clearly, they need to be integrated into decision-making as a whole. They can't just drive the bus. But in this sense, a hero knows that they have emotion. They're aware of their emotional reality to a minute level of detail. They understand what the emotion is communicating to them, and they're able to use that information effectively. So they're able to take advantage of what's going on with emotion rather than being destabilized by it or just suppressing it. 7, a hero zooms out. This is some classic enlightenment stuff here. If you've been on a meditation retreat, you've probably experienced this. If we can zoom out and witness that which we normally identify as the self, next to all those other characters we normally identify as the other, then so much of the petty struggle and the traps of the ego drop away, and we're left with compassion for all those funny little characters, including our previous self. So I'm imagining my daughter playing with her dolls, and some of her dolls are actually dolls. Some are just drawings on pieces of cardboard that are beautiful child art. Some are sticks. But she's outside of that. She is totally zoomed out. She's omnipotent. And she's just witnessing all of this drama with glee and compassion. And she's radically and heroically free in that situation. So that's another definition of hero. 8, a hero is spiritually obese. It's one of my favorite ones. So, and this is classic for me, and I've accessed this through psychedelics and meditation for years. But this is that sense of expansion of the self. So the normal membranes, which seem so real and which separate our bodies and our consciousness from the others, just melt away, and we begin to include the formerly other beings as ourselves. So this is really easy to do with kids and pets. And I notice this a lot in India, where I'd say probably most parents I ran into, their profile pictures on Google or Skype or whatever were of their kids. There was a real conflation of identity, this expansion of the self to include multiple beings that are normally considered multiple. But it's pretty hard to do this with anybody else who's not your kid or your pet without a lot of practice. And yet, when we can access this kind of obesity effortlessly, the whole false dichotomy of selfishness and altruism just dissolves. It can make no sense when the self is so large. And this is actually one way I see the evolution of consciousness and why I'm bullish on our ability to make it as a species, because we have been slowly getting more and more obese over time. That's a good thing. In the beginning, it was just the family and the clan that I could include in my sense of self. And then I got into the city sports team, and we got into the nation state, and we're crossing all kinds of formerly insurmountable ethnic and religious barriers. Obviously, we still have trouble with some of those. But the trend is just getting fatter and fatter over time. And for me, it's the growth of this spiritual obesity That's going to eventually include all of the humans and then maybe some of the non-humans, and eventually is going to save us from our infighting and destruction. Number 9, a hero sees all sides. So this is directly from that mediation workshop with Ken Cloak that everybody should take at every opportunity, because that guy is just an incredibly enlightened genius. But for Ken, a mediator is somebody who can role play every perspective in the room, not just the opinions, but the deep needs and interests that underline everything. And once we can do that, nobody can simply be that asshole anymore. Everybody has a story, everybody has history, everybody has motivations, everybody has trauma, and our actions, as shitty as they often are, make sense in that context. So imagine if you could see all sides in this way of your greatest foil or enemy. If I could truly put every one of Dick Cheney's wars and profiteering arrangements in perspective and really get it. It'd be marvelous, wouldn't it? And finally, number 10, a hero is made of heroes. So this is going back to Jeff Salzman's episodes and the developmental perspective. We have multiple characters alive in us, and to be a hero is to take what is heroic about each one of those. So in my conversation with Jeff, he talks about 5 of those levels, and when I get deeper into this one, we'll pick out what is heroic about each of those 5. From the child whose only way of understanding the world is magic, to that raw desire for power and autonomy we all have, to the deep love and respect for order and virtue and belonging, to the amoral genius of rationality, which can get anything done regardless of how it affects us, to the heart-opening realization that everyone has a story. Each one of those levels of development has a notion of heroism that we can, and Jeff would say, must, and I would agree with him, integrate in order to be a hero now, an integrated hero. All right, friends, that's the overview of season 6. I'll do some interviews too, especially if I can find guests that address these 10 definitions. Conflict welcomed, because as you and I know, the only way out is through. Thus concludes another episode of the 10,000 Heroes show. On behalf of myself and Martine, my producer, thank you for listening. And if you never want to miss another episode, if you want to have transcripts of everything you've heard, if you want to be in delightful one-on-one communication with me, and you want to hear about upcoming live events, sign up for our newsletter. You can go to momentumlive.com/podcast and get all the information.